Hi everyone. This is Rod and Kazue. Yes. So Kazue, it was a pretty long due kind of discussion that we are having today, right? I mean, it's so finally we are getting together today, and obviously, as we can see from your background, we'll be talking about tarot. So well, first of all, I would like to, if you can introduce yourself, so and why we're going to be talking about tarot today.
Yeah. Okay, so my name is Kazue. Hi, everyone. I'm an artist, self-taught artist, and I've been dealing with the tarot cards for almost 34 years. I am also a psychologist. I got a master's degree in psychology. I have created my own tarot deck, which you can see as a background. And I'm now teaching tarot in terms of Esotericism in Japan. We both like academic approaches to Esotericism. Mine is obviously mainly, well, psychology. Hardly anybody in Japan know the association between Esotericism and tarot, how modern current tarot was created based on Esotericism. So see, at least I know in Japan there are hardly any books that are available. But you know, it's very interesting, I thought, to hear about how tarot is perceived in Italy, where tarot cards are actually from, or like originated. You know, I would like to ask that question to you, Rod. How about that?
Yeah, I think very few people in Italy actually know that the tarot comes from Italy. This is
no, that is just so weird.
It's sad but true reality that very few people in Italy, unless you are within this environment, in this milieu of people that actually know about tarot, very few people realize that, and even less people realize that what we call the Tarot de Marseille,
yeah,
are actually the basic playing cards in Italy. They're playing cards that you can find in any part, in any pub, in any kind of like family, well, before the internet and before the TV, like where people, but just, family gather together, play cards, and they would play with what is the Tarot de Marseille without the major arcana. This is our traditional folk playing cards.
But I just find it so like ironic because Tarot de Marseille is from France, like.
Right. Original, I think it was, well, there is many speculation about it. Most likely it was imported in Italy around the 1400, 1400, was imported from the Arabic game, right? It was originally
Arabic game. It was imported into Italy. Yeah, then in Italy it was developed into 78 cards set, right?
Not yet. First of all, they came in. The Arabic game came in. It was like with the four suits, like originally what we had, also the coin, the cups, the swords, and rods. But if I remember well, in the Arabian side, in the Arabian part of the game, they were not supposed to have figures, so they didn't have the kings and queens yet, because I think for their, if I'm not wrong, for their religion, it was not. They were not supposed to depict a human figure in the game. So that was imported in Italy.
Yeah,
and
that
Italy
makes sense. Yeah, because of Islamic background, that they were not supposed to like have sort of icons, like human figure icons, right?
Yeah, exactly. So most likely what came in, it was the four suits from the 1 to 10. So say the basic four.
So it was really simple game.
Yeah. I think it was simple. Now I don't know the details. Unfortunately, I don't have all the details, and I don't even know if those details are actually available somewhere or if it's still speculation. But for sure, it is that once he came into Italy in the 1400, in Italy they added the figures of the court cards, so the king, the queen.
So court cards were added in Italy as well.
Yeah. Right.
Ah, okay. I actually did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, yes. So actually, the whole tarot without the major arcana was in around the 1400. And then what happened is that these cards traveled to France. So we're still talking about the 1400. At the very same time, still in Italy.
Yeah.
These cards were added on with the what we call the major arcana today. But the major arcana that they added on were taken from with a totally different meaning that we may think, but there was a lot of lore attached to it. So it was taken from literature, poems, especially they were called the triumph, right? I mean, the major arcana.
Yeah, like triumphs, yes.
And like we have a major work from a famous poet called Petrarca, and it's the name of the poem is The Triumph. And most of the figurines of the depiction are taken from poems, are taken from works of the literature, the Middle Age literature of Italy, representing some kind of, like for instance, the death card is coming from the plague, right? It's representing the time of the plague.
Yeah.
So the card has a very strong feel of the plague of the Middle Age plague in Europe. There is other cards that are pretty much representing a lot of plays, like theater plays, poems, and literature work.
Okay.
So Petrarch is at the same time of Dante, basically. So these figures were representing some kind of lore, some kind of story, and they were added on to the cards. And this is how the major arcana were added on. But we're still within a quote-unquote game kind of use of the cards.
Sure. Yes.
And at the same time, of course, most likely there must have been a connection, because when with the Marseille Tarot, as well as we know it, they also have the major arcana attached to it. So for sure, there was this kind of development between the 1400 and the 1500, and connection between the development of these cards. It's complicated.
It is complicated. I mean, like I talk about a history of tarot in my tarot course in Japanese, obviously, and it's covered in that Italian part is covered in 3 minutes. I mean, like people not gonna listen to 20 minutes of a history of the tarot when they actually want to learn how to read the tarot cards. But yeah, but it is interesting how it was developed. And it is interesting that there was so much thoughts that were put into creating, or conceptualizing the cards. However, it was still used for game. Not that I undermine game. So I don't consider game to be wonderful or anything. But yeah.
Yeah, there is what we know in history. We know that pretty much the tarot was officially started to be used as a divination from the 1700s. So we're talking about 300 years later than actually the production of the tarot itself. Although there are records of divination using the tarot in Bologna, for instance. There is a record of divination in Bologna that was also early 1700.
Okay.
So you see this block coming in 1400, most likely from the 1400 went to France, start to develop major arcana over it, but these major arcana were essentially some kind of lore, stories, plays, and attached to this kind of literature work. And then we have to wait until the 1700 to actually have some records of use of tarot for divination purposes.
Yeah.
And that's when, the first stage was the tailors attaching the tarot to the Egyptian origins. And it was the very first step for the divination. And then the second step for the divination arrived around the 1800. So the first step was the Egyptian the Egyptian step. Second step was Eliphas Levi with the connection with Kabbalah and alphabet. And then the last step, I think it was the Wait and Pamela Woolman-Smith.
We are more like a Midas, wasn't it? Margaret,
right.
Yes. Yeah. Then the Wait or Pamela Smith, they are more like fourth tier.
Right.
Yeah. And then, you know, of course, later on, Alexa Crowley to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But we can see that these are not, I mean, at least as I see it, I don't see it as an evolutionary
it's not like a straight line evolution. It's actually like taken something and started branching out.
Exactly.
Right. So I don't like to go back to that how Italians perceive tarot, and like, are they proud of that philosophical, artistic history in terms with tarot cards?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think many people are aware of it, but I think who is aware of it, of course, we are kind of proud because we have not only the card was originally created in Italy, and the major arcana was actually originally created in Italy, but you know, we have the two major, actually should be three, but the Mantegna tarot are not really tarot. They are called Mantegna tarot, but these Mantegna are mainly an visual encyclopedia, so it's not really the structure of the tarot itself. So I would leave the Mantegna out of the discussion. But we have the two major ones that are the Solabusca, which is from Ferrara, Venice of the 14th.
Which is your hometown, right?
Yeah, and this one were produced in,
How old were you when you found out about it? Like, what did you feel about that?
I think it was in my 20s, I guess, when I found out that the Solabusca were actually from my hometown. And it's very interesting because, I mean, we have the Solabusca and the Sforza, right? How you call it? The Visconti Sforza. The Visconti Sforza are the one from Milan, and then we have the Solabusca that are from Ferrara and Venice, and they're pretty much period-wise, they're very close to each other. We're talking about late 1400, early 1500. Yeah. The difference between the two is like they both have very exquisite and beautiful artwork. Extremely complicated, extremely elaborated artwork. Beautiful artwork. The Visconti Sforza are most likely maybe earlier even than the Solabusca, but the Solabusca were the first deck that was completed with 78 cards.
Is it at a museum?
I'm sorry?
Is it at a museum?
Yeah, it's at the Pinacoteca of Brera in Milan. You can actually, if you go to Milan, you can visit that. It's like a museum. It's called Pinacoteca. It's like a museum, and these cards are exposed.
Wow.
This is the first deck that we have as 78 cards. And if I think you may remember the Solabusca because when Pamela Coleman-Smith had the opportunity to see this deck in London, because it was exposed in London during the time of early 1900s.
Yes.
So she saw this deck and actually she got inspired by, in fact, you see like the Three of Swords, for instance. The same card. Yeah. So she got a lot of idea from the Solabusca. And while the Visconti Sforza from Milan, although they are from the same time, similar time, and a similar structure, the Visconti Sforza, although Visconti Sforza were maybe 15, 20 different decks, and maybe there are more in somebody's home that they don't even know that they have it. But the most famous one, like we have the Modrone one, we have the Brera one. So the most famous Visconti Sforza that we have today, they will never be able to find all 78 cards. They were always missing some. They're always missing some cards. Yeah. So this is, I think, is the major difference between the Visconti Sforza and the Solabusca. beside other difference that it may related to the use or the purpose of the creation of the deck itself. But from the historical point of view, the Visconti Sforza we never had. In fact, in all the reproduction that we have today of the Visconti Sforza, some cards are being reinvented, trying to follow the same theme, but has been remade. While the Sola have the full deck of 78 cards. And another interesting thing that to mention is that, like for instance, the Visconti Sforza or the Solabusca that come from the Middle Age. These decks were, although we are not 100% sure why or what is the purpose of this deck, but for sure they were commissioned as a gift. So to have a tarot deck gifted for a wedding or gifted for some kind of special event was a very elitary kind of thing. Like, because these works were, in Italy, these works were like, you can imagine, back then there was no printing company. So to put together something like the Solabusca it actually was created for a famous patrician family of Venice, basically. And so tarot decks used to be like wedding present for rich families. And if you wanted to impress your guests, if you wanted to give some kind of value, it was like an art, it's like I give
it's a hand painted like artwork of a 78 series.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I gift you for your wedding, I gift you with a Botticelli painting, it's pretty much that would be the meaning of it. And in fact, we have these decks that they were presented to for weddings and for very important events as work of art. So we don't know actually then the families themselves, like the Visconti Sforza, the Visconti family. I don't know if the Visconti family actually did use these cards for divination or they use it for game, but for sure they receive it as a luxury gift. Another thing, as you mentioned, that in Italy there was, we did have, and we have, I think pretty much who is in tarot is famous with the Meneghelli.
Yes,
Meneghelli is one of the most famous printing company, and Menegazzi was the artist behind. Unfortunately, it passed away recently. Who was the artist behind all these tarot that are handmade and numbered, who has purchased a deck from the Meneghello, knows that all this deck come numbered actually and beautifully made, handmade. And he was telling me that one of his, this shop is in Milan. And he was telling me that among his clients, one of the famous client that he had was actually Pavarotti. Because Pavarotti used to commission to him tarot decks, because he used to gift his friends with these handmade tarot decks.
It is like I don't know how many times I use the word super interesting today, but again, I'm going to use it, super interesting, or more like fascinating, that like Pavarotti, who is, obviously world famous opera singer, would gift tarot cards as, gift tarot cards to who? Like to play games or for divination or to continue Italian tradition. Tradition from like a super rich, like king-like family, but yes,
I don't know either way, but for sure it is fascinating, and most likely Pavarotti. I like to think that Pavarotti may have carried this tradition, knowing that tarot deck was a precious gift to give. Like my heart wants to believe that. Actually,
that's a beautiful notion. I like to vote for that as well.
Right, to carry on this tradition of gifting somebody of something as precious as it could be a tarot deck that is actually crafted and made and carefully, and especially as the deck that they were produced, and they are produced from the Meneghello's editions, the Meneghello printing.
That's such an awesome story. You still haven't answered my question. So when you found out about one of the oldest tarot cards from your home country, hometown, not just country, your hometown, what did you feel? I mean, you have came so far as like your family were your family were using like Italian traditional playing cards, but
no, definitely. I mean, it was a surprise, but not even so much of a surprise, because our especially Ferrara is known to have a very deep esoteric background to it. Like we had Paracelsus graduating at the University of Ferrara.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
The University of Ferrara is from the 1300. So I think after the Bologna, Padua, and then Ferrara was one of the oldest university in
and you went
Italy.
to Bologna University, right? Which is the oldest university in the world.
Is the oldest one is Cairo. Cairo University in Egypt is actually the oldest one.
Okay.
And Bologna is the second one, but definitely is the oldest in Europe.
Yeah.
From the 1100 something. And so Ferrara with the university, with Paracelsus, with a lot, we have the Este family.
Yeah.
We have all this, like we have the Medici in Firenze, the Visconti, the Sforza in Milan, and the Este in Ferrara. So all these families, especially during the Renaissance time, they were really deeply involved with esoteric studies, astrology, Hermeticism, Neoplatonism.
Wow. Okay. That makes sense. That you are actually you actually grew up in such a privileged environment of esotericism, like esoteric history.
Yeah, it's famous. Yeah, it's pretty famous for that. We have. Ferrara was also one of the, when we had the famous council of between the Greek church and the Eastern Church and the Western Church. The Council of Ferrara Firenze is famous because we have this all the Byzantine priests and Byzantine top scholars coming to Ferrara and Firenze to have this council when the church tried to reunite, to find some kind of common grounds between the Eastern Church and the Western Church, because they were going two different ways. Like the Roman Catholic way was going toward the Aristotelian teaching, and then that's while the Byzantium, the Western, the Eastern Roman Empire was more going toward keeping the Greek Orthodox, more Neoplatonic. So there was this council and a lot of scholars.
That part, even like I had to organize my mind. Many people wouldn't even know all those differences, so to speak.
I think we have to maybe we need to make a because this is pretty deep discussion.
It is. It's like
goes to
that's a whole different next
and
step.
Actually. Yeah, and this discussion connects to what I mentioned before about the Mantegna Tarot. The Mantegna Tarot, which are not really called tarot, but they're not tarot, is actually an Hermetic Neoplatonic encyclopedia. And this deck is this deck is related to this council, because when these Eastern Church, Eastern Byzantine scholars came to Italy, they came in with a lot of Neoplatonic and Hermetic knowledge that we didn't have in Rome. So there was a famous guy among them, was called Platon.
What?
Giorgio Gemisto Platon was a top Byzantine scholar.
Yeah.
That brought Neoplatonism, Neoplatonism into Italy, And that's where the Mantegna Tarot is related to. In fact, if you see the Mantegna Tarot, it has a series for the planets. It goes through the 7 planets, typical of the Hermetic teaching.
For the audiences who don't know what Byzantine thing is, I think we'll have to take another recording to go through that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So, yeah, but going back to that, the discussion, yeah, like as we say, like we need to analyze, and then I think when we'll talk about your tarot decks as well, I think it's important to define that the old,
the
medieval tarot,
which is basically called historical tarot, I think.
Right. I mean, those tarots and those arcanas as a lore to it, as it's like a history. Like you look at this picture, you want to create a story. You know, there is kings, there is queen, there is the plague, there is. This is creating a kind of like the 1001 Nights is creating stories, and these tarots, the lore of these tarots is another story compared to the tarots that we use today as a esoteric tool for, now used from the Radio White onward, Thoth Tarot. There is a strong connection with the Kabbalah, there is a strong connection with the Hebrew alphabet, there is a strong connection with ceremonial magic. So I think we're talking about two different worlds.
Systems, yes.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And one was basically, the later one was influenced by the former one, but it's actually just branching out. It's not linear evolution, so to speak.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's a wonderful tool, of course, because, tarot, Levi connected to the Hebrew alphabet, great for Levi, but we can connect it with the Phoenician, we can connect it with the hieroglyphics, we can connect it with I Ching, we can connect it with anything. And it became...
That's the whole point of a Kabbalah, like practicing Kabbalah, that you connect one thing to another and just expand your own understanding of the world. And you eventually come to the understanding that everything is connected to each other, everything becomes one, and one, therefore there is zero or beyond it.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah, it has become like this Kabbalistic thinking tool. Although in Japan, people think it's a tool that was created for divination or fortune telling, but the true understanding of modern tarot is that it was created to study esotericism.
Well, it's a beautiful tool. It became a beautiful tool. It is a beautiful tool to study esotericism as we are used to think about it, like based on Kabbalah, based on the Hebrew alphabet, based on all the correspondences that are connected with the Hermeticism.
Yeah.
The pillars are Hermeticism, Neoplatonism. There's still pillars. And so they are a beautiful tool for divination, and they are a beautiful tool to study esoteric science with it.
I'd like to consider that my tarot courses are not just about tarot reading, but it is actually using esotericism or learning esotericisms to face one's own life and to, for spiritual or spiritual growth or development. I would like to consider my course to be that, because I think esotericism itself is about learning, growing, developing, whether it's Kabbalah or alchemy or, 4 elements and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's exactly, I think that's why it became such a popular tools as well, right? Because also the symbolism, the correspondence. It's like it's like having a small, as the Mantegna Tarot did, a visual encyclopedia for Hermeticism. The modern decks are a visual encyclopedia, like a kind of a visual encyclopedia for the esotericism as we know.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
The esotericism that we're talking about, the esotericism, as we said, from Levi, from Eliphas,
yes.
On more. Then, as you say, most likely, like if you take the suit of coins, whether the suit of coins is, if you see it from an esoteric point of view, related to the element earth, in all the symbology that is related to the earth, to represent material and everything. So it's the suit of coin.
Yeah.
Or if you see the suit of coin as the medieval Platonic way, that is actually one of the cardinal virtue, because it's prudence, right? Prudence was represented with a disc.
Yeah.
This is the different interpretation. You can see the four suits as the four elements, or you can see the four suits as the four cardinal virtues.
Yeah.
And the more you get into that, the more things start to actually, the dots start to connect.
Yes, the dot starts making, starts creating lines, and it will start making pictures. And then when people reflect that picture with oneself, they can understand life and the world better.
Right.
Yeah, I think I heard what I wanted to hear. So, yes, there are more things I would like to know. So the conversation will continue.
Sure. So thank you. And
Thank you too.